Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to my class. And at the very inception of the discussion of Shelley's Ode to the West Wind, I just like to listen to you on the basis of the discussion that I enjoyed with you in my last class. So the question that I put to Miss Nafia, what does Shelley hope for? Shelley hopes for a better future. Yes, you have told me that Shelley is very practical. Undoubtedly, he is very, very practical. And at the same time, Shelley believes that there will be a time when social injustice, political oppression or persecution, moral degeneration, and social discrimination, especially on the basis of capital. So these are the evils of the society, and all these evils will be driven out of this world. So Shelley always believes that there will be a time when everybody will be free from all these corrosive evils, the evil of injustice, the evil of political persecution, the evil of moral degeneration, or the evil of social injustice or discrimination or racism. So regarding this kind of disposition or attitude, Shelley is an optimist. For that reason, many prominent critics of English literature, even Matthew Arnold, you must have heard the name of this great poet of Victorian period. Matthew Arnold says that Shelley is a pessimist when he thinks of the present, and Shelley is an optimist when he thinks of the future. That is, the present period is full of persecution, oppression, tyranny, exploitation, religious hypocrisy, moral degeneration. So when Shelley thinks of the present, he becomes a pessimist. And when he thinks of the future, he becomes an optimist. Because he thinks that there will be a time when everybody of the society will be free from any sort of injustice, moral degeneration, economic and social discrimination. You know that the society is compartmentalized or fragmented, classified into different sections. If you have a lot of money, you belong to the upper class. If you do not have money, you belong to the lower class. If you are educated and if your role is ambiguous, then you belong to the middle class. The middle class people are always very intelligent because they do not want to take risk of their existence. They are called bourgeois. So bourgeois people or the bourgeois do not want to take the risk of their solvent survival in the society. So these are the classes in the society on the basis of economic ability. Shelley is a poet of equality. Shelley is a poet of equality. He wants to destroy all the evils of the society. He wants to destroy all the institutions that divide human beings into different classes. So Shelley is a destroyer, and he will find this reflection in his famous poem, The Ode to the West Wind. The West Wind is called a destroyer. Shelley has called the Western a destroyer. Okay, and many critics have concluded that Shelley himself is the Western. So remember this. It's a very important point that you have to keep in mind. That is, Shelley is called the Western. Why? Because the manifestation of Shelley's desire to destroy all the corrupted institutions that divide human beings into different sections and create an atmosphere of injustice. So Shelley is always against all these corrupted, manipulated, and corrosive institutions of the society. Okay, so Shelley is a destroyer. And at the same time, Shelley is a preserver. So in what sense is he a preserver? Shelley is a preserver because he wants that the future for the human beings will be better, will be comfortable. There will be a time when there will have no discrimination in the society, and all the corrupted institutions will be terminated, and there will be some good institutions that will ensure man's comfortable living, solvent living, intellectual living. Okay, Shelley has not emotionalized the material phenomena or the elements related to human existence. He has not emotionalized all these relevant elements related to man's existence in the society. Shelley has intellectualized all these things. So why? Because of Shelley's being influenced by the philosophers like Plato, then William Godwin, and many other contemporary thinkers. You know that 18th century is a very remarkable century because of the flourishment of intellectual practices. That was a century of enlightenment. And you must have heard the names of the philosophers like Voltaire, Montesquieu, then Rousseau, okay, Immanuel Kant, Hobbes. You must have heard these names. These philosophers immensely contributed to the development of a human conscious, that is consciousness about man's existence in the society. If you are conscious of your existence in the society, you will question the institutions around you. It may be religious institution, it may be political institution, it may be social institution. So you will question all those institutions around you that work like the state apparatuses and control you. This happens because of your close study of philosophy. So while you are influenced by philosophy, you will have the ability to question the institutions that put on masks of honesty but exploit the people. So Shelley was an intellectual. He was intellectual because he had a very extensive reading of the philosophers that I have mentioned. He was a conscious poet, okay, and his mind was very receptacle. His mind responded to the contemporary incidents and events. And we know that French Revolution took place in 1789. And Shelley was born after the French Revolution, that is in 1792. But the impact of the French Revolution influenced Shelley and his other contemporaries. For example, Wordsworth, Byron, you will find the impact of French Revolution upon these romantic poets. And Shelley was not an exception. He was also influenced by the French Revolution. And for that reason, he was conscious about injustice. He was conscious about the persecution, tyranny, or oppression practiced by the rulers of the society, the rulers who enjoyed the hegemonic status and exercised power upon the people. And Shelley was very much vocal against all these institutions. And that very consciousness about the present situations and circumstances made him a pessimist. But he is an optimist regarding the future. Okay, as he has pronounced at the end of the poem Ode to the West Wind, "O wild, O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind?" So winter refers to the present time, the time of injustice, the time of discrimination, the time of poverty, the time of deprivation. And he says, the spring season is not far behind. So what does he mean by this expression? He means that a better time will come, a better future will come, and then all the people will be free from this tyranny or this persecuting situation. So Shelley, in this respect, Shelley himself is the Western. Okay. So while reciting this poem, you must keep it in mind that West Wind has become a metaphor of Shelley's personality. The West Wind is Shelley himself. The West Wind is a destroyer. Shelley himself is also a destroyer. And at the same time, the West Wind is a preserver. That is, the West Wind preserves some seeds just below the surface of sand or earth. And when the spring season comes and blows its clarion on the earth, these seeds germinate, and the nature will be full of greenery. This nature will be full of green plants, colorful flowers, and there will be life. There will be life vibrant with enjoyment, happiness, and celebration. So in this respect, we call Shelley a metaphorical representation of the West Wind. And we know that it is not possible for a poet to be, just let me finish. We know that a poet cannot tell whatever he wants to tell directly. Why? Because if a poet enunciates his thoughts or his expectations directly without taking resort to metaphors or other rhetorical devices, then it will be a kind of speech or propaganda. So a poet, that is the poet who is truly a poet, takes resort to some literary devices. And Shelley is a true poet, a very powerful poet, and for that reason he has expressed his ideas. He has given his message. He wants to scatter his message among the human beings under the disguise of the West Wind. Okay, so he has called the West Wind his liar, and he invites the West Wind to come to him and blow the lyre so that the humanity can hear the message of freedom, the message of rebirth, the message of democracy, equality, solidarity, and fraternity. Okay, so in this respect, while reciting this poem, you will find that Shelley himself is present in every line of this poem. Okay, another thing that I mentioned in the last class, that Shelley is a master of rhetorics. And in almost every line of this poem, you will find that Shelley has used rhetorical techniques. Sometimes he has used metaphor, sometimes he has employed simile, then allegory, he has taken resort to symbols, etc., etc., or allusions. So Shelley is really a master of rhetorics. And while reciting his poem, we find that he is also an extensive reader because he has used myths from different sources. Okay. So now I think this is the preamble of Ode to the West Wind. Now I like to hear you. If you have any question, please let me know.
Sir, I want to tell, sir, this metaphoric ki Shelley's life or Shelley?
Shelley, not life. Shelley's revolutionary spirit
Okay, sir.
has been reflected in the movement, in the activities of the West Wind.
Okay, sir.
So the West Wind
Okay, sir.
has become a metaphor of Shelley himself. Okay.
Okay. Okay, sir.
So now I like to recite the poem and interpret every line for your convenience. I like to share the poem. I like to share the screen with you. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In my last discussion, I told you about the definition of ode. That is, ode means song. Ode is a lyrical poem or subjective poem. It usually begins with apostrophe or address. And towards the beginning or inception, we find the poet's sorrows or sadness or grievances. And it usually ends with the poet's optimism or hope. And there are three kinds of ode: regular ode, irregular ode, and Horatian ode, or autobiographical ode. The ode to the West Wind is a regular ode because in every stanza we find 14 lines, and every stanza is written in terjarima rhyme scheme. And you know the flow of this rhyme scheme: A, B, A, B, C, B, C, D, C, D, E, D, F, F. And if you very closely mark the rhyme scheme of this poem, you will find that the poet has very mathematically and meticulously employed this terjarima rhyme scheme. And for your benefit, I have highlighted the rhyme scheme just beside every line. A, B, A. Just look at the first stanza of this poem. B, C, B, C, D, C, D, E, D, F, F. Okay. So this poem is written in terjarima rhyme scheme. And in every stanza, you will find the implementation of this rhyme scheme. And towards the beginning, Shelley laments over the present sorrowful situation of the world. But towards the end, the poet is optimistic. The poet thinks that though the present time is very cruel, and though the people are oppressed and victims of discrimination, in future there will be comfort, there will be equality, there will be solidarity. Okay, so this is Shelley's pessimism and optimism. as we find reflected in this poem. And this is also a revolutionary poem because here we find Shelley's role as a revolutionary. A revolutionary resists social injustice. And at the same time, he has a plan. He has a vision. He wants that the future will be constructed in such a way that everybody of the society will have the benefit of it and they will live in comfort, peace, and happiness. And they will be united with the bond of brotherhood. They will live on the same platform of cosmopolitanism. This is Shelley's revolutionary attitude that we find reflected in this poem. Okay. So I think you have got some basic ideas about Ode to the West Wind. Now I like to draw your attention to the poem